maximize every opportunity so that you can become legendary.
What adjustments can you make right now to make yourself 1%
Your
better?
only goal is to be the best version of you.
Dr. Nancy, welcome to Becoming Legendary. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Brian has told me lots of wonderful things about you, so I'm really excited that we're going to get the opportunity to connect here with you today. For anyone who may not be familiar with who you are, can you offer a 15 to 30 second introduction?
Wow, sometimes I don't feel like that's enough, but it's okay. I'm going to give it a go. So I'm Dr. Nancy Gaines-Dillard of Dr. Nancy's Integrative Medicine. I have a number of businesses from Dr. Nancy's Medical Training Academy to my own talk show, Dr. Nancy Knows. In the medical practice, I specialize in mind, body, and spirit, really just reminding myself to be present in every moment of individuals' lives to get them to see that they are beautifully made, and I accomplish helping getting them to live their best life. So, first and foremost, I'm a medical healthcare provider, and then secondarily, I like to advocate for others, and I had an opportunity to have a larger voice. So Dr. Nancy Knows, and now recently acquiring NGC, Nancy Gaines Cares Network. So it's a minority media broadcasting network.
How recent is that? How recent is that experience?
Yeah, so the network, we made an announcement publicly December 31st, January 1st, and we just launched last Friday. So yeah, so super excited about it. The last day of Black History Month, February 28th, was my launch party.
Heck yeah. Congratulations, that's amazing.
Yeah, congratulations, that's amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional, but then, we kind of transitioned right into the month of March, and it's Celebrate Women's Month too. So I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it should be.
What are the plans with the network?
Thank you for asking. So Dr. Nancy Knows is over a little over a year now. October 17th was our 1-year anniversary. So super excited about that. I have over 70 shows under my belt. We air a new show every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Arizona time. And, all of what I am comes from a higher purpose. And if you believe you can, you will. And everybody has a purpose. And so as I continue to put one foot in front of the other, and a lot of times just faithfully blinded, my steps are already ordered. And so with Dr. Nancy Knows already on 22 platforms, with the network, it gives me a larger voice now that I am broadcasting in 196 countries. So it just, brings more awareness to, putting positive energy out in the universe and advocating for individuals with credible, relevant information that people can use and make more informed decisions.
Be the change you wish to see in the world. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's my motto actually.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You have to live it and breathe it and represent it. So it's so easy to say something, but when you put action behind it, it's so much more impactful.
The action is really where it's delivered, right? I mean, there can be things ethereal, like floating around in the atmosphere, but until you put the pen to paper, it really doesn't make sense. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you mentioned something in the very beginning, and it's a word, or it's a phrase that's commonly used in the wellness field, if you will. It's something that I try to live by, the connection between, and many of our listeners do as well, the connection between mind, body, and spirit. So in your daily practices, in your own personal practices, not something you're trying to sort of deliver to the public, what kind of tools or techniques do you utilize to create that mind, body, spirit connection?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Brian. And personally and professionally, I'm one and the same. And for a long while, I tried to separate it, but it's all one and the same. So if I practice one way personally, I mean, it just carries over into my professional ability and lifestyle on how I advocate and provide care for. So, first and foremost, I thank my Heavenly Father above. I meditate, and I ask for a download as to, what it is that I need to be and do to support others, because really, when you walk in your gifts, they're not meant for you to keep, they're meant for you to give away. However, you do have to make yourself a priority, right? And so that goes with that, practicing what you preach. You have to really take care of yourself, right? So mentally, physically, spiritually, you have to be in a good place, love yourself, learn to forgive yourself in order for others to get the best you.
That's a great answer. Learning how to forgive yourself. I think that's a practice we're all, embedded in. Well, if we're in the conscious community, if you will, and it's something I really noticed about you when we spent that hour and a half together when I had COVID really bad, and I was Nancy's integrative medicine, the clinic that I went to has the monoclonal antibody treatment. So that was a very special moment for me. And your energy is very present, right? You really take on that field of presence, and I really appreciated that from you. In terms of your meditation, I think I'm just going to jump right into it. What does your meditation practice look like? It's a question we oftentimes ask on this podcast, and I'm not really speaking towards like what shape the body is or what's happening for you inside. Patrick, did I say that right?
No, it's good. I like it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I like to think that I sprinkle all kinds of goodies and nuggets in the universe and to all people that encounter me. It's a conscientious effort. It's a choice. It's something that you have to actually, the self-actualization and self-awareness. And so it's a presence that you just have to feel inside as a being, but rather it's listening to vibrational sound, rather it's light therapy, rather it's affirming to yourself. I start my day out by saying thank you, first of all, and then I go into a whole host of other kind of mantras and routines, of course, but it doesn't just stop there. That's just to get me started, because you need a little bit of all of that all day long. So consciously, you're like affirming, or you're speaking to yourself. So you have to really know that you are a change agent. You are energy. So whatever you're actually putting out there actively, it comes back to you. And so when people step into my space, my practices, I get this all the time. Your aura is like great, or the facility, the energy in here is really good. So that's a conscientious effort. You're going to have thoughts. Women have more thoughts than men in a daily basis, and negative ones will come. That's a natural thing. You cannot prevent that. But what you can do is counteract that by 5 positive things, right? So it's okay. Learn to forgive yourself. Things are going to happen. You're human. But knowing that you're going to be, the rate limiting step is, and the only person that you need to compete with is you, and be better than you were the day before. So learn to forgive yourself and just realize there's another opportunity to get it right, always.
Always. That's beautiful.
I'm kind of interested in my perception of the dichotomy between the best version of humanity and the pressure or push into capitalism. And I think you play very interestingly in both worlds. I found that playing in both worlds with an equivalent weight on either side of the scale is remarkably hard. Do you feel like that is something that you're currently doing? Or do you feel like the scale is equally balanced right now?
It's interesting you asked that. So astrologically speaking, I am a Libra. And so those are the scales, and we have to be balanced.
Oh my.
However, capitalism and I'm here to take back everything that might have been taken away in terms of freedom, speech, freedom of choices. So I'm here to advocate for those individuals. So I think I'm a little bit more tipped one way on having your own voice and, believing and trusting in there are more than one way to get to irresolute of an issue or a problem. So say, for instance, like in medicine, it's always been dictated that, man-made is the superior form of something to discover your best health. I beg to differ. And now I've taken an oath and I'm sworn to advocate for all my patients, but I like to give individuals options. And alternatively, the earth was made for us, mankind, to live off of. So plant-based, there are options. And I just feel as though the information that's put out is often one-sided. So that's why I have an opportunity, and I feel obligated to do so, to be more of a voice of putting out information so that individuals can have a more informed way of deciding how to live their best life from a medical standpoint. And I really, that really speaks true to all of me that I do on a professional or personal level as well, that we don't live in a dictatorship, although it may seem like that sometimes, and maybe that's how it may feel right now too, but we all have a voice and we all have a say. And so I want to hear those people, because that's who I advocate for. And it can be debatable. I like discussion. I like to know why a person may decide to choose this, and I can share my views. And then, we can sometimes agree to disagree or walk away more enlightened on either side of point of view.
Yeah. So touching back on something that you said there, I'm curious about this. I understand your perspective, but I wonder. So you said that the Earth was made for mankind. I wonder what you think would happen if all humans were instantaneously dissolved from the Earth right now. Do you think that the experience of the Earth itself would be more vibrant or less vibrant?
That's an excellent question. Oh my God. Well, there's half of us that do practice conservatism, their carbon footprints, and there's others of us that don't, right? There's global warming, there's all of these kinds of things that as a human mankind, we could do better, for the atmosphere, the universe, and this earth that we live on, because it's changing, and we can make it better or we can make it worse. And we all need to, come together to decide how we're going to do that, because our times are not as good as they were before. And if we choose to, leave less of this carbon footprint that changes all this global warming, and the soil that, we grow things in, and, the supplements, the food that we eat is not as nutrient rich as it was before. So I think that mankind is partly the problem or the issue as to why our earth is not as vibrant as it used to be as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a fair answer.
Yeah,
you mentioned before. Yeah. What do you define as before?
Well, so before we had all this crazy weather, before we had, chemical plants polluting the air, and certain types of cancers are more prevalent in other areas. I mean, before, clinical trials with medications, that information hadn't come out until later, that were really not good for the public, but it always comes down to the bottom dollar. It comes down to money, 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 right? So we can do better. We can always do better, as a nation, as a whole, as humankind.
Absolutely. When you mention plant-based formulas, plant-based, that's really speaking towards your NG Cares line, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So Patrick and I, I actually work for Patrick. He's he owns a company called Sacred Plant Company. So he owns a 60-acre ranch on the top of the Colorado Monument, just outside of Glade Park. Yeah, just outside of Glade Park. I'm finally getting the story correctly now. So on top of the Colorado Monument, just outside of a small town called Glade Park, Colorado, and we farm and source all of our own sustainable farming, and we specifically use something called Korean natural farming, which is actually importing nutrients into the soil to help the earth recover from all of the issues that we just sort of spoke about. So that sort of spectrum and that field is very near and dear to our hearts. So I want to break that down just a little bit further in what you really mean by, because I think this is where things are trending, right? If they're not already there, in terms of putting everybody into one box, that seems like that's a model that no longer fits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, elaborate on, because I'm really interested in myself. I been diagnosed with what's called rheumatoid arthritis. So it's an autoimmune issue that as many of the listeners understand, I've told that story before, but I'm really now trending down the path of looking into my own supplementation, looking into crafting my own supplementation. So I don't want to steal too many words, but tell me how that journey started for you, and then how you see that growing and expanding as science and as the awareness of our culture as a whole starts to expand and grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an excellent question. Wow. So I'm African American Cherokee, and old wives' tales and just old ways of treating issues and eating is a part of my DNA. And I've been practicing medicine for over 25 years, and mostly on the East Coast, majority of my career, until about 5 years ago. It was a divine journey for me to move across the country 3,000 miles away. And when I got here, this part of the country is a little bit more holistic, natural, alternative, acupuncture, sound wave, bowls, music, all these different alternative treatment modalities to, soothe the soul, to enhance more awareness, to live your best life mindfully. And so I started delving a little bit more into that. And NG Cares, Nancy Gaines Cares About You, is a product line that really is for weight loss. It's for natural supplementation to help control anxiety, depression, those kinds of things. And then, of course, some of my services are IV vitamin drip therapy. And then the NG Cares Customized Wellness Solution is really I have several contracts with non-compounding pharmacies, and based on an individual's deficiencies through some blood work that I do, I can formulate a 90-day supply supplement, because it is reported that, of course, the sources in which our foods are grown in, they're not as nutrient dense anymore. And so you're going to need some supplementation to help augment to get the supplements that you need to thrive, most importantly. Now, I do micronutrient testing and genomic testing. And, for individuals that are pretty healthy, young adults, I do recommend basic blood work once a year. And these are standard tests that check to make sure you're not diabetic, your cholesterol is under control, your kidneys are functioning normally, and your platelets and lipid panels, cholesterol, all those. I recommend that every year. But then there's special populations as we get older, or, autoimmune disorders, chronic disease, chronic pain. Those individuals say they go to their regular doctor, they get routine blood work, and the doctor says, everybody, you're fine, and they don't feel fine, right?
Yes.
Right.
I can relate.
They don't feel fine. So micronutrient testing, to speak more specifically to your question, Brian, is it is how your body metabolizes and processes your nutrients that you put in from your diet at the membrane level, so at the cellular level, so intracellular and extracellular. And then we add on some inflammatory markers, all these kinds of things, because you can just have some deficiencies in your micronutrients that can make all the difference, whether it's in your gut, whether it's intracellular, extracellular. can make all the difference, that can help you live your best life in less pain. And some of these autoimmune disorders that you've been told you had, like, Hashimoto's or thyroid or, hormonal issues, they can be corrected at the micronutrient level that you may have deficiencies on. So that's what I do. And I practice that nationally. I can practice that in all states. I'm licensed in 10. Colorado is one of them for medical practice, medical services. But my supplementation is nationally. And so is the lab that I work with to get your blood work as well. So that's one way that an individual can seek out care to assist them with some of their chronic concerns and issues that they've had that have not been remedied by any other healthcare provider that they've seen.
It's about time we have more people like you out there, because I went to a nutritionist to see about the rheumatoid arthritis, and I put it in remission simply through my diet, simply through doing a couple different tests. I didn't do the micronutrient test, but I did with the first initial reaction and the gut reaction, right? So figuring out those two components of what I was eating was an eye opener for me. And then just 45 days, 90 days of a really, really tight diet, I was able to reverse that. So that is out there for people who are suffering from these types of things. So Dr. Nancy is a resource to consider moving forward. Yeah.
While we're briefly touching, there's two things I have for you on the subject of like exogenous inputs. I know that kind of in the world of integrative medicine, we can oftentimes get down the pathways of research peptides. Do you do any work with research peptides?
That's a great question. So I treat individuals with peptides, for chronic pain or injury as well. Samorelin, ipamorelin, there's a number of them as well that can help with glucose control. Yes, so I utilize peptides. So NG Care's Customized Wellness, the product that I developed that uses micronutrient testing and genomic testing. But then also, in addition to outside of that, I do environmental, seasonal allergies, food sensitivities, as well as heavy metals, environmental toxins. I do those kinds of tests as well, because outside of micronutrient testing, genomic testing, it could be that, you live on a golf course all your life, and the pesticides that they spray the grass with, you develop some kinds of disorders that mimic autoimmune disorders. And it could be just basically from your environment, right? So not everything has to be genetically predisposed, because it could be something that, you used to do occupational and as an occupation, or your current living situation in the area that you live, right? Even on the East Coast, women are 10 times more likely to get breast cancer than they are on the West Coast because of all the pollutants in the air. So a lot of things can be determined by environment. I do want to touch on one other gene too. It's MTHFR gene mutation. And Brian had mentioned about the gut. And so that gene mutation, over 50% of our population has that mutation, and it's the inability to methylate folate or your B12. That's a conversion that happens in your gut. And so if you don't know that you have that mutation, you can suffer with fogginess, irritability, or you can suffer with some micronutrients that you need to have methylated folate and or your B12 converted over, and that you're not getting, because your gut is your second brain, and it can really determine how you feel, think, all these sort of things. Again, it's a little deeper dive with testing that your typical healthcare provider doesn't do.
Interesting.
I can't remember.
So I look at food diaries too. So Brian was really on point.
Does the gene mutation there, does that require both parents, or is that a single parent? Is that a single parent genetic offering?
That's an excellent question. So It could just come from one, but you can have double jeopardy if it came from both. And so this gene will tell you if you're heterozygous, homozygous, or both, right? And the more compounded it is, the worse it is, the worse your symptoms.
It is an amplifier if you have it from both parents.
It definitely is.
And do you, kind of circling back a little bit, do you have, and maybe this isn't an appropriate question, but if it is, do you have a theory on the prevalence of autoimmune issues in our current life environment?
Yeah, right. So I just kind of alluded to it a little bit. So some of these autoimmune disorders you think you have, or you've been told or diagnosed with, could just be really from environment, or it could be your occupation. So even the specialists like a rheumatoid arthritis, rheumatologist or hematologist, or, some of these specialists, they don't delve that deep into the cellular level to do these types of tests, like heavy metals, like environmental toxins, like mold, right? So they don't do those kinds of tests. And it could be you just need some simple chelation therapy, just really those kind of things can make a difference.
That's interesting.
So misdiagnosis is, you think, relatively prevalent?
It is, I would not discount it, right? There's a lot of people walking around thinking that they have something and they don't necessarily have it, right? And so it takes a whole diet overall. I do that. I have a team that kind of will come in and counsel you, and you have to do the intake paperwork, and we test you. I often say you're gonna do one of two things in life. One of two things. You're either going to invest in your health, or you're going to invest in your illness. And you can be the wealthiest person in the world, but if you don't have your health, that's a sad situation. And so, a lot of these tests are out of pocket, right? And if you're an individual that have been down that rabbit hole and feel as though there's something that could be better or missing, or you feel misdiagnosed, or wow, let me look at this. There are options, and you've not explored them all. This is an option.
It's an option. Some of the recommendations I received from my rheumatologist, whose name will not be mentioned on this podcast, but bless his heart, he does the best he can. But he was shocked at some of the therapies that I find most impactful for what's happening with me. And some of those therapies are cold baths, a red light therapy, and something called a biocharger. So he could not understand how I got into the ice bath. He was like, that sounds terrifying to me. I would never do that. So, it's amazing if you have something that's happening within you that doesn't feel necessarily like it's the right diagnosis, then it's your opportunity, like you said, to take your health into your own hands and to go down that rabbit hole. I'm still in that rabbit hole. Maybe I'll never come out, but the deeper I get down it, the more and more I discover. People like you, Dr. Nancy, people like Patrick, who have come into my life at the right time and provided me with these resources that have been impactful for me. So that's something that's always available for those people out there too. Not that we're here to give you advice, but this is speaking from experience.
That's really great. So, red light therapy works wonders for myofascial releasing, increasing your circulation, really, and just improving your overall mentation too, by the way. And then biofeedback systems, they are really real. They can kind of tell you exactly what area may be an issue, and that for a guidance as to how you should best treat that particular condition. And then ice baths are like cryotherapy, shocking the body. Athletes do it all the time. You just need to regenerate and recharge. And there are nascent cells in you that can turn on to ugliness. And so intermittent fasting, all these kinds of things are just beautiful for the body.
100%. So here's another one I want to ask you. This is going to be sort of off of the radar, so to speak, but that's kind of the fun of this thing, right? So what's the biggest mistake you've made in your journey? I want to know a mistake that you made and how you overcame that mistake. Because I think part of the biggest learning opportunities come from the mistakes we've all made, right? So I'll leave it at that.
Wow, I've made many mistakes. Wow, like, But you know, you don't learn from things that you do very well. It's almost like if you give somebody something, they just, they don't appreciate as much. But you certainly appreciate something more when you fail at it, right? And I don't know if I like to use that term fail, because fail doesn't mean you overcome it, and you've not, fail is like it's still there, right? So I have fallen many times, but it's what you do. It's how long do you stay down? That's the other thing, right? So it's okay. These thoughts come in, you get them out by reversing it with something positive. All right, you fall down, and guess what? You don't stay down. You get up and you shake it off, and you keep on moving, and you say, okay, what is my takeaway from that? So I don't know that I can necessarily tell you specifically what I failed at, but let's say Dr. Nancy's integrative medicine. When I first moved out here, I put everything into the business, and I almost failed at it horribly. And I said, okay, universe, is this what you really want me to do? Because working in an organization, an institution with guaranteed income, W-2, that's really good. I was so comfortable, because when you step outside of your comfort zone, it doesn't feel great. It's exciting, but scary all at the same time. You're like, ooh. But you have to persevere, tenacity, right? So persistency, consistency, you have to just continue. And so the universe said yes. So honestly, I regrouped, didn't stay down for long, and I came out, because I felt like, okay, I have been given the sign that I am on the right path. Because here's the other thing, the closer you get to where it is that you need to be, the more challenges that come up. It's like an obstacle course. But overcome and just know that you can. I tell you, the rate limiting step is you. If you don't think you can, you won't. You will self-defeat yourself every day, every time. But listen, you have to pour into yourself and be your biggest cheerleader, because nobody can do that for you. And then you have to take action, because if you believe you can do it, then now you've got to prove it to yourself. You've got to act upon it, because the universe is waiting for you to walk into other people's lives to help them along their journey. And the more that you do that, the more assistance that you get along the way. So it's reciprocal.
I believe that too. Well said from a smart woman. That's amazing.
It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at a lot of billionaires, they can tell you they've filed bankruptcy a number of times. They failed it a number of times, like athletes as well. I mean, actors and actresses, they can tell you countless number of times that they fell or didn't get a part or just lost their business. But tenacity. You have to keep trying and trying and try. If it's something that you believe in, even Van Gogh, he dreamed his masterpieces, right? He dreamed them, and then he painted his dreams. So whatever you dream, you can become. It's just, you just have to believe that you can.
Can't believe it. Exactly. It starts with yourself and ends with yourself. 100%.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
All right. So I got one more question for you, maybe a couple more, but this is something that really ties into, I think a lot of what we do like to share with the public. I think that's one, obviously, one stream of energy we like to all put out there, but this kind of cuts a little bit below the surface of that. So what is something that you seldom discuss in your practice, in your personal life, in your community, something that you seldom discuss that means a lot to you? That's something that maybe a core value or maybe, yeah, I'll leave it.
I mean, I get that. I totally get that. And if you asked me this maybe a couple years ago, I'd tell you quite a few things, but I'm very transparent. And I think that people can't learn and grow from individuals if you don't share realness with them, sure, right? 100%. If you're not real, individuals can really see that a mile away. I mean, particularly in the healthcare profession as well. So there's not like a lot of things that I won't talk about. I mean, I've had failed relationships and professionally and personally. Again, but they're all learning tools. So, what is your takeaway from that? If you don't evolve and grow from that, you will repeat itself again and again and again. And then I'm from the old school where, it's a testimony about what you have failed at and had overcome, because again, with the universe, and I ask, everybody that comes my way have been sent for a reason. And so if I stay in the present, and that small still voice, if it speaks to me and I'm in front of that person, it's meant for that person to hear and know. So there's not a lot of sacred things that I keep near and dear to me. I mean, there's like there's what am I trying to say? Like traditional things, tradition, that's kind of thing. But wow, I will tell you that as an entrepreneur, you cannot tell everybody everything every step of the way, right? Because I understand telling somebody that this is what you're going to do. So then they ask you about it, right? Whenever they see you and you're held accountable, you're like, wow, I did say that, didn't I? Yes. But trade secrets, that sort of thing. There's a lot of proprietary information that I hold. And non-disclosures are very important, right? Trade secrets of formulations and things that I talk about and say from a professional standpoint, of course, right? So those kinds of things, because there are people out there that really want to get behind the castle walls to expose you and or, steal what you have.
Sure.
But you know what? The one constant in that equation is you. You cannot do it better than I can. Whatever it is that I'm destined to do, I'm the one that's destined to do it. Okay. And it doesn't matter for all you young entrepreneurial business individual minded individuals that have a dream and have, something that they think a lot of people do it too. They're not you. They're not you.
I love that.
That's good advice.
It's important too. Yeah, it's important to be your authentic self in as many avenues as you can, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal, I think, for a lot of people out there, is to be that authentic self. Of course, there is some areas and things you need to keep to yourself, but I think overall that's a really solid piece for the listeners out there to take away. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And thanks for carving out this time for us. I think this was a really nice way to get our listener base an introduction to you, and for me to get an introduction to you. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. When Brian, reached out to me, I was like, sure, absolutely. Listen, it's not about me. Although, my name is everywhere. Dr. Nancy knows, and I tell people this all the time. It is a business, definitely a business. And branding is everything. But for me, and my purpose is to bring awareness, not necessarily to the services that I offer, but how about to ways that you can live your best life and live it now. And it's through alternative treatment modalities, right? How many doctors are out there going in front of the camera that are telling individuals, hey, you don't have to come see me, but this is what you can look into. This is how this may be beneficial to you. I don't want a thing. All right, so it's my obligation. I have a network now, broadcasting in 196 countries now, to put out credible information, to help people know that there are other ways that you can live your best life and not just one way. There are multiple ways, and keep your options open. Of course, do your due diligence and seek out individuals that are professionals in those areas, of course. But if I don't plant the seed, maybe you may never really know, but it's to trigger you. I'm doing this for a purpose. Sometimes I don't even know why, but it's knowledge that I have, and it's not meant for me to keep. It's meant for me to share.
We appreciate you sharing so much. And I think all those people out there have a new discovered resource and just a new way to look at their own individual health and their own individual mind, body, spirit connection.
Yeah, that's great. So I will plug, I have a webinar coming up on April 12th. I'm not sure when this will air. And it's Doug Caparino and myself. He's a colleague of mine. We work together. He's a biochemist, nutritionist as well, best-selling author. And he and I are super excited about bringing a webinar. It's called Build Your Immunity. And it's talking about COVID and the most relevant strands, long hauler symptoms, and how to live your best life, right? So I just think that that's information that people can always use. And one of the main questions I ask people sometimes is your immune system strong enough to combat viral illnesses? Now, I started that at the beginning of COVID, and it's still relevant now, and I think it will always be relevant. But if you have to think about it, then it's not. And so how can you get your immune system strong enough so that you can be ready for viruses, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you. Send me that link, and like we can add that to the show notes for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's in my link tree, so all of my conglomerates are in that
Gotcha.
one link that I sent you, and
Perfect.
the webinar's at the top.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Dr. Nancy. I appreciate you. Hopefully I'll see you soon, but not for monoclonals this time.
Okay, great. Well, maybe I'd like to have you two on the show as well, Dr. Nancy knows, and we can together is the key, right? So if we are wanting to do great things and be the change that we wish to see in the world, it really only takes one, but it's infectious.
It is.
So, other people are like, wow, I like that. I want more. And like-minded individuals tend to kind of attract one another. And we need more of that. So that's what I want to do.
We would be honored to be on your show as guests, 100%. Let's make that happen in the future. That'd be fun.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Cool.